Just say I do.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of weddings and events. I'm your host, Keith Willard. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about LGBTQ plus inclusivity. Yes, it's a mouthful, and it's obviously a hot topic because it is the fastest growing section in weddings currently, and again, it's a hot topic. But do we really know how to be inclusive in not just our actions but our words? And so our guest today is Chanda Daniels. She is the owner and creative director of Chanda Daniels Planning and Design. She is a world-class wedding and event planner that specializes in LGBTQ plus weddings. And so I'm excited to bring her on. But before I do, bring on Marcy Gutenberg, my co-host. Hi, Marcy.
Hello.
And of course, I forgot to say An Affair to Remember by Marcy.
Thank you.
I don't know why I forget that. Anyway, but this is one of those things. I mean, here being in South Florida, I guess we just always kind of
we have it. I mean, it's been kind of embedded into us for a very long time.
Because we've always been a hotspot for the LGBTQ community.
Exactly.
Especially like Welton Manors. I mean, it is
South Beach.
Yeah. I mean, but a lot of times, especially now, as we get more and more inclusive, as we become more and more aware of the wording that we should be using and making sure that we are being, I don't know, I keep saying inclusive. I'm trying to think of another word for it. We're finding that even ourselves, even me as a gay man, am not always using the proper terminology.
Well, because we need to be sensitive to, people who are not always this, we're not, I mean, nobody is the same. So we have to be, as you said, inclusive, because we need to be sensitive to everybody's desires of how they see themselves.
Well, and let's say, talking about sensitive, I don't want to hold Shanda in the waiting room too long. Hi, Shanda. Welcome to Behind the Veil.
Hi, Marcy. Hi, Keith. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
I love it. And you're on the opposite coast. So you're in San Francisco.
Yes.
In Oakland. Right. And so let me ask you, is it because, well, first I want to hear a little bit about your company, because it's incredible, all the places that you've been. I mean, I saw Martha Stewart's Wedding, The Knot, Brides Magazine. I mean, name drop, all of those. Have you always been involved in the LGBTQ plus weddings? Was that a focus when you first started your business, or did it just something that naturally evolved?
Actually, Keith, it was something that I started, like when I started the business, that was a market, or that was a community that I decided that I wanted to focus on, because when I first started and just doing my research, and you already know my age, so the internet wasn't the way it is right now. So I had to just like do a little scoping around and see who was out there. And then I noticed at the time they were called commitment ceremonies.
Yep.
And then I noticed there was no planners out there that had commitment ceremony, that had LGBTQ plus couples on their websites. None.
I find that fascinating.
And what was extremely fascinating is because I'm right across the bridge from San Francisco.
Well, that's what I find fascinating. Yes. It's not the fact that the times have changed. It's the fact that you're in San Francisco and huge LGBTQ plus community, and there were no planners that were focused on commitment ceremonies between them. Now, as a gay man, I will say that when I was younger, I actually never thought I was going to be able to get married. I just assumed it would always be illegal. And so when the opportunity actually presented itself, I mean, it took me a moment. I went, wait, I can actually get legally married? Do I really want that?
I can definitely see that. And for me, I feel like in Oakland has a really big lesbian of color or lesbian population. And so I didn't see a thing from anyone, right? And what I love to tell people too is I thought like, okay, maybe people weren't getting married, maybe because they're not seeing themselves. They didn't know legal or not.
Right.
And so what I tell people is that at the time, people were still, and this was a lot of money back then,
Yeah.
people were
No.
still paying like $40,000 for their weddings at the time, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I was like, regardless if it was legal, here are people who want to celebrate their commitments regardless to who approves it, right?
Right.
So I felt like everybody's missing, I don't want to say missing out on the opportunity,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
missing out on the opportunity.
It
But
was a niche. It was a niche definitely overlooked.
yeah, it was definitely overlooked. But as somebody that's been in this community, and we talked about a little bit about this before we went on live, is that I remember, back in Dynasty age when we really weren't represented in any way, almost kiss that then faded to black, and everybody was freaking out. Yeah, oh my God, look at us, we're on TV. The being married, because it was never in my brain as allowed, quote unquote, legally. I don't know, it actually it kept me from imagining it. It kept me from thinking about it. It kept me from finding the joy in the idea of being able to get married, and so it just knocked it out of my head. I just assumed that would never happen.
Okay, so you are definitely touching on something else because I never thought about it in that way either,
Yeah.
but that is the way that I think about, if you think about other couples, other diverse couples,
Yes.
when they don't see themselves represented in magazines or represented in different places, then
Right.
you can't imagine having a ceremony, having a high-end ceremony, having just
Right.
anything. So what you just said really just like a light literally just came on because if as a LGBTQ plus member, if we aren't seeing ourselves on
Right.
websites, in magazines, or anything, we don't know there's even a possibility. So
Well,
yeah.
and I mean, and think about it with the larger branching out community, our cisgendered sisters and brothers, and theys and theirs. um they're not seeing themselves truly represented yet. Yes, it's come a long way, but they're still not there. And so the idea of them getting married, I luckily the younger population has a different feeling. They are come a long way, but I have my own prejudices. I mean, they say being homophobic is actually you have self-hate, right? So I think that's actually the definition. There was something about it, but being homophobic, that's it. Being homophobic is actually literally self-hate. And there was my own homophobic thoughts and deals that I had to work through in order to become more inclusive outwardly. I had to become more inclusively inwardly. Does that make sense? I
Mhm.
because I didn't allow myself to dream that. I never,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so therefore, if I saw other people, I mean, sorry, I'm getting off topic, but I still remember like the first time I saw two gay men sitting on Santa's lap kissing, and I must have been like 13 at the time, maybe 14 at the time. And
Hmm.
it was the first time I went, oh my God, it's okay. You can kiss other men in public? What? Like my brain just kind of blew up, but it opened up a whole new field for me. It allowed me to become more of who I was supposed to be.
See that
It was about
I,
learning
that's
to
why
accept you for yourself.
yeah.
it's yes, and then seeing yourself, seeing something that connected to you that made you know that it's okay. And that's what I love. This may be a little off topic too, but this is
Yeah.
what I love about the community that's coming up right now because they see, I mean, like with Lizzo, with everybody,
Right.
with, oh my gosh, with all the self love that's going on right now, I feel like this generation
Yeah.
is in such a better place because if I would have seen Lizzo when I was growing up, I would have felt
Yes.
better. If I would have saw like a person with locks planning weddings, I would have felt better. If I would have seen myself, I would
Yeah.
have known what was possible as opposed to feeling the way that I felt. You know what I mean? And just like you said,
Yeah.
when you saw that couple, you were like, I'm this is
That's
can
me.
happen.
Oh my God, that's
Yes,
me.
this is you.
but and that comes in all shapes and sizes. We could be talking about color, we could be talking about weight, we could be talking about height, we could talk about even accents, because Germans, when I was young, my mom's from Germany. It was, oh gosh, she has a very heavy German accent, and so she used to get looks. I mean, everybody, every facet of life has that kind of moment of self-hatred that you wish, and I think that the younger generation is getting it right, that there was a positive representation
Yes.
out there that would stomp down that self-hate, that stomps that down and allows
Yes.
you to love yourself and be happy and be joyous and look forward to something. And I feel like society was so like this, but now that we're like this, everybody's like, well, what do we do? How do we say it?
Yes, yes, and that is yes. And that is, I feel like, a learning, especially for us in the wedding industry, because it's so long it's been husband and wife. So
Right.
long it's been bride and groom. So long it's been those terms.
Yeah.
And it's just about learning. It's about taking it day by day. It's about being mindful
Mindful.
about how you say things and what you say, because we get into the routine.
Yep.
When we're booking
Right.
clients, it's just like, okay, bride, groom, boom, boom. It's like, oh my gosh, wait, hold up.
Right.
Let me start over. Let me slow down.
Yeah.
Let me think about, let me look at who I'm talking to and not just feel like a robot. And then things just come out, right?
Yeah.
So it's about being very, I heard you when you said about using the word inclusive. That is the only word to use, because we have to be mindfully, oh, I just made this up, mindfully inclusive. That is
I like
Put that
we
in quotes. It's going in a magazine right there.
hello, hashtag mindfully inclusive. No, but you have to do that, because we're booking clients, we're doing this, we're moving so fast in this industry that we have to slow down and
Yeah.
look at what we're actually doing.
Do you find that because you're in San Francisco, and did you find that the gay community itself had to do a little adjusting to the idea of actually getting married legally? I mean, I got married 6 years ago, and I was, first of all, shocked that I was able to get married, but also it was eye-opening to be on the couple side, to be the one getting married versus the one planning a wedding. But I still have couples, same-sex couples, that are having that moment of, okay, so we're going to do our wedding at Ritz-Carlton, and we're going to, say our vows in front of 150 people at a like big name hotel. How comfortable do I feel in doing that?
That's a good question. Because that is one of the things when people ask me what is the biggest difference, or what is the difference between planning a LGBTQ plus wedding and a husband and wife wedding. And so the biggest thing for me is those conversations, is
Yeah.
about having a couple say, well, my family has never seen me kiss before. They've never seen us kiss before. How do we feel about that? Or how to make sure people are comfortable. And a couple that I
Mm.
recently just signed on, I love this. It was so sweet. They were like, well, this is my family, my entire guest list. This is their first time coming to a LGBTQ plus wedding. They don't
Yes.
know what that's like. And I'm like, well, I
Like another
get
wedding.
it,
But okay.
but
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
also not. It also not.
normal
I get that.
wedding. It's just we're celebrating you. We're celebrating love. That's what we're celebrating, love. And however way that looks, that
Right.
is what a wedding is. Celebrating the couple.
But
Well,
couldn't you
go ahead.
say that a couple, like let's say you have a couple that is heterosexual and they're just a shy couple, could you not say that maybe they may not have those same concerns about having like a big wedding
Mm.
and being in front of other people and just not having that comfort level? Or
I
and I'm
see
just
what
playing
you're
the devil's
saying.
advocate.
Yeah, no,
I
I
see
said
what you're
that.
saying, Marcy, but
But
people have seen heterosexual couples kiss on TV. They've seen it in movies. They've seen it, right?
right, right.
So some guests may have never seen an LGBTQ I feel like I'm saying too many letters.
Right.
They
You know,
may they may have never seen that before. So, but the heterosexual couples, people have seen it. They've
right,
seen
Right.
it. But then also what you said about people being shy, you would never believe how many people, everybody that wants a big wedding is shy. They're
yes,
like, we don't want
It's
all the attention. We
true.
don't, so regardless to who you are,
right,
people say that about
right,
like being shy and not wanting to have all the attention. But then it's just really having that conversation about what is why are you doing this way? Like
right.
Right.
there's no rule to say that you have to have a big wedding. So
Or
Well,
you
and
can
then,
do a small wedding and then have the big celebration.
well,
Is, for a couple that is more on the shyer side.
well, and so there's another part of this as well, and I think that and we said this before we went on air. I mean, this is a unique perspective that we have two people that are in the LGBTQ plus community that are pros, and it's even rare that we got three pros that have been long term in the community doing
yes.
weddings, and what I find is, so I had. This is like the tale of two weddings, and it was so strange because they were both at the exact same location. The difference is that one wedding was a gay couple, gay interracial couple that were in their late 40s, early 50s, and the other one was a gay Latino couple that were in their early 20s. And the difference between one wedding and the other, the young gay couple actually had capes made with the word
Yes.
fag and homo and all that, and they walked down the aisle, and when they got to the end of it, they pulled those capes off, like alleviating themselves of all those words, alleviating themselves so that they could then find the joy with each other, right? So they dug right into it, while the older couple was a little bit more conservative, a little bit more like, is my daughter gonna see me kiss a man for the first time because he was married to a woman before and has kids? And so all of those things come into those conversations, and those are difficult conversations. Those are personal and like could be hurtful conversations, and you have to be so careful, so
It
careful.
extremely. That's another part too. And Keith, you know this as well. That's completely different when we are working with these couples from the very beginning.
Yeah,
I've had I've had times where more than once where I've literally cried with my couples when they talk about like if families are going to show up
yeah. If
or
families are gonna show
Yes.
up,
if
Yes.
family is like
It's a concern.
parents if
yeah,
parents are going to show up, who's going to walk them down the aisle, like all of these raw emotion. And I'm sure, I
yeah.
want to say this too, I've had the same, not exactly the same conversations. I'm an emotional person, I'm a Pisces, you know how that goes. But I've cried with all couples when they talk about families and family situations, but that is the most popular conversation
Yeah,
that I've had with my
parents.
LGBTQ plus couples is parents and acceptance. And that was like the acceptance was one of the main reasons why I truly decided to make the LGBTQ plus couple my focus. Because for me, I come from two diverse groups that
Right.
have never traditionally been included in the wedding industry. So I come from it from two perspectives and wanting to make sure that brides of color, want to make sure that LGBTQ plus couples felt I was going to represent and take care of them
Yep.
and honor them and make sure that all the creative partners that I take them to and the people that I work with, that they will take care of them, support them, celebrate them as well. Because I never wanted to have my couples feel like they had to come out to
Yeah.
every single creative to
Uh,
see if it's
that is
okay.
a great way to put it.
Mhm.
Because I mean, you're planning your wedding. You don't want to have to keep coming out to all your different vendors.
And
And
you know how that makes you feel.
oh,
You
oh,
shouldn't feel that way.
oh,
You
the
shouldn't
stress, the
feel that way.
anxiety, that like, oh my God, are they gonna like me? Even though you're paying them, I mean,
Exact. Yes.
you don't need to worry about them liking you, but there's still that a little bit in there. And I think that's part of this conversation about being inclusive. When you're a vendor and you're not in a gay or lesbian, bisexual, et cetera, if you're not looking at it from a raw emotional standpoint, that words can do damage in ways that you cannot even understand or express, like saying bride and groom, or like saying the mother-daughter dance. I mean, the father-daughter dance.
Yes.
It's like, well,
Yes.
what if there's not a
Yes.
daughter?
And
What if it's a
especially if you
son?
own a if
What? Go ahead.
yes, and if you like for instance, oh, I'm sorry, you cut out just a little bit.
Sorry. Yeah.
We 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 do we say wedding party. We
Yeah.
just say wedding party. That's what
Nice.
we call our the group. We call
Right.
it the wedding party as opposed to saying bridesmaids, groomsmen. That's not inclusive. So we say wedding party unless the couple has repeated and said, okay, we want to say bridal party, we want to say that. We
Right.
ask. I always check in and ask people on what would make them the most comfortable, but
Yeah.
it's a general rule in my company to use to say wedding party, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to convince all the venues to change their rooms to just
I
say wedding
agree.
suite.
Yes.
Even Marcy,
Agree.
let's start that. Please, let's start that
Totally.
campaign. Like
Totally.
it's so simple.
I
That is
mean,
the
just, I mean,
simplest thing.
And
just change
calling
it.
them
Go ahead.
couple, I mean, like I always say to people, like, who are you marrying? Because you don't want to come out and make an assumption
Right.
that whether they're marrying man or woman or cisgender, whatever the
Right.
case might be, everybody is different. I did have a gay couple get married recently, and one of the things I thought that was really nice, and it's a great way to incorporate it for your guests, if it's a close knit group of people, they said the more dominant, I would say, the more
Yeah.
dominant one, he was the one more in line with dealing with the invitations. He said our chosen family.
Yes.
And I thought,
I like
how
that.
genius
Yes.
is that? Because it really does tell them that how special they are, and makes them a little bit more comfortable if
Yep.
there is any hesitation.
That is absolutely, I love that. I love that. And to me, Keith, the way you were describing the two different weddings and the styles,
Yep.
it really goes back to how just couples in general, how we are now really focused on telling their love story the way that they want to tell it.
Right.
Like I tell my couples, there's nothing that you have to do except have an officiant and a marriage license. Everything else, literally everything else, you can make it how your love story is to be told.
Right.
That is the only two
Right.
things you have to have. And it's just about those couples. I love how you said the symbolization of them walking down with the capes on and then getting like releasing all of the negativity and all of the
Yeah.
names and owning it and releasing it.
Yep.
That to me is like what weddings and celebrating love should be about. It should be about how their particular love story and those things that are important to them.
Well, and that's the thing about if you're a vendor out there and you're trying to be inclusive, it's important to know that sometimes when you're dealing with a couple that's coming from the LGBTQ plus, the act of getting married is not just the fact that they're joyous and getting married, but this might be their coming out story. This might be the first time that they actually officially say something to their family. There may be baggage and drama that is
Yes.
attached to them that they're also having to deal with emotionally. And that means they may not respond the same way as other couples, because there is that hesitation, that sense, that moment of, oh God, is it okay for us to do a first dance? Okay, my dad's gonna see, and I think that it can get confusing and difficult for vendors that aren't LGBTQ plus, don't have somebody that's from the LGBTQ plus, because then what do you say? What do you do? How do you know how the other person is going to take whatever you say? So I think having a conversation, you mentioned this earlier, having a conversation with a couple first and asking him, how do you want to be talk to? How, what kind of words do you want us to apply to your wedding? What words make you feel comfortable? Do you want to use bridal party or do you want to use wedding party? But let them tell you.
Yes, and to me, my golden rule is when I like to have just open-ended conversations, and this is just with any couple,
Yeah.
because again, like Keith, it's about putting together their love story, hearing everything, like how do they, and this is something that I learned too. I, I had a little situation where I just assumed
Mm.
someone wouldn't want flowers. So I started asking open ended questions.
Yep.
So
Yep.
my open ended question is now, how do you want flowers to be represented in your wedding day? And
Oh my
then
God.
that gives a person the opportunity to say, okay, yes, I actually do want a bouquet. I want this. I want that. So instead of, I'm going to just
That
say
happened
that
to
word,
me.
instead of assuming,
Yes.
right?
That just
It's
happened to
just
me.
that open-ended question. And then when you just tell people, okay, how do you see this? What do you want your guests to say? All of those, that open-ended question will give you all the answers that you need. It's just
Mhm.
about how we approach it
Oh my God.
and just
I did.
having those, right? Right. I'm speaking to the choir, right?
I
Okay.
did the same thing. I did the same thing, and I'll take it a step further. I had a reaction to the group, one of the grooms saying, "I want a bouquet," and my own upbringing went, "Men don't carry flowers." That was in my brain. I was like, "What? What?
Mm.
Stop that, brain! Stop that!" I mean, my immediate reaction was like, "What? No, I mean, I have to untrain my own brain about my own prejudices, even though I'm part of the community. I mean, and
Yep.
this could be said for every religion. This could be
Mhm.
said for every race. This could be said. I mean, we're not just talking about, we're obviously focusing on the LGBTQ plus community today, but the same thing could be said for our African American couples or Indian couples. I mean, they have a whole different world of traditions. We could be talking differences in our Jewish populations.
Totally.
Yes, yes. And that to me, that's when you get into as a creative,
Mm.
reaching out to your network and having some conversation and saying, hey Keith, I have this LGBTQ plus couple coming. This is my very first time. Can
Yes.
you kind of be a mentor? How much do you charge for that? Can you guide me through this process? Like, this is my first time. And I'm sure that gives it's nothing wrong with saying that this is your first time,
Yes.
but it's ignorant to assume you don't have resources, because for as many websites we have, as many creatives you have,
Right.
someone in your network knows something, and you will know the right person to go
Yep.
to. And if they don't want to help you out, that's another conversation you need to have with yourself. You know what I
Really.
mean? It's
Yeah.
so many people out there who don't want you to fail and want you to be great. Just reach out and find them and ask for help.
Well, and actually, that endears me to somebody that says, I have a gay couple, I have a Jewish couple, I have I need to find out what I need to know, so that way I respect them. And it should show a lot about that planner or about that creative, saying that they actually went the extra step to then try to put themselves in the other person's shoes, right?
Yes.
Right.
And
Yes.
I think that's a really big part of being inclusive in the LGBTQ plus community is taking that extra step to read up on it, find out, reach out to somebody. Because I tell you what, if somebody asks me for help, I'm absolutely giving it, because that's the only way we advance our community and increase understanding. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yes.
we need to be the role models that we want other people to emulate.
Exactly.
Exactly, exactly. And Marcy, I'm sure that you have those unique conversations too
Oh,
with your
yes.
paper goods and figuring out like how to do the
Yeah.
wording and all
How
of
do you
that,
want to
because
word it? Right.
that can bring up those feelings as well,
That's
right?
a great
Absolutely.
that's a
You know,
great question.
even
How do you bring that up when you
Well, I do. I mean, I do. I sit down with them and I talk how they met and
right.
so forth. And I get to know the couple a little bit because I want to get a feel for how they are and where they're coming from and their background. Like the couple that I was telling you about earlier, this was a second marriage for one of them, not for the other one.
Right.
It was a first marriage for one and a second marriage for the other. The second marriage, he was married to another woman prior to that.
Is this my wedding? Is this my wedding?
It is not actually.
I was like, oh my God, is that Dion and Michael? Are you telling me?
No, it was not. No, that we did that one together. But yes, we did do that one together. But this is actually
very familiar.
And so he didn't know how to deal with the whole children thing. Like his children were actually adults. So he was in a different, again, that was a totally different dynamic when you're dealing with adult children versus young children who are going to experience, like seeing their parents moving on as an adult, number one, and moving on with somebody of same sex. So that's a totally different dynamic. But yes, I mean, it's all a matter of the language, talking about their feelings, how much do they want to place out there for other people to see in the experience.
And Shonda, I actually have a really specific question that's related to that. When it comes to a same-sex couple, there is a belief that when the names are in order, that the first person is a dominant and the second person is a submissive, because they're like, oh, I don't want to be looked at or seen as a submissive. We're equals kind of thing. But if you're looking at it from the outside, it's easy to get wrapped up in that. So do you talk about that, about how to keep people feeling equal on all levels, meaning from print all the way through the wedding? Do you have one groom walk before the other, or do you have them meet? I mean, so far I've had them meet at the same time. I haven't had one that wanted to walk first, but I don't say that that's never going to happen. I'm sure it will, because one wants to go first.
Well, that's a good question. In terms of the paper, in terms of the announcements and whatnot, no, I've never had that come up before. And I just usually like the way that the couple, I'll say this, the way that the couple reaches out to me. So say, for instance, my wife's name is Stephanie. So if Stephanie and Shonda reached out to me, I would always refer you to as Stephanie and Shonda. So that would be it. But if Shonda and Stephanie reach out, I would always say Shonda and Stephanie. So it just depends on how they came to me. They've never they've never said anything about that. And then in terms of walking down the aisle, I ask, like, how do you want to present yourselves? How do you want to get to the aisle, to the ceremony space? Who wants to go first? Who wants to go second? Do you want to go together? How do you visualize that? How do you see yourselves? And then they pretty much tell me and walk me through it. And then they'll say, well, how are things traditionally done? And I always say, nothing is traditional. Like, I will tell you, you need to end up right here. That is the point where you need to end. How do you want to get there?
And
tell me how you want to get there, and I will walk you through it.
Because many times they do turn to us and ask us, like,
what's the right way to do it?
Yeah, what's the right way to do it?
Yes.
And I say there is no right way. The only way that's right is the way you decide. That's the right way to do it.
But with invitations, I also do what you do, Shonda, is that I ask them, how would you like to be portrayed on the invitation? Do you want one name first? Do you want one name, or do you want them side by side? That's a question that I always ask. And it's not just LGBTQ plus groups. It's also heterosexuals as well. I always ask them, because in certain ethnic religion or ethnic locations, they do put like a man before a woman, and things like that. So I always ask that question regardless.
It's just such a brand new world. I mean, it's so easy to step on a landmine.
It really, you know what? I feel like as wedding creators, we all need to just get into that place of just asking, and then if a couple, because like I said, I'll ask them, how do you want to? But then they will say, well, how's it traditionally done? I say what I say. And then they say, well, tell me, how have your other couples done it? Give us some examples. And then I'll walk them through some examples of what other couples have done. But I feel like weddings, just in general, we're moving from a place of tradition
Yeah.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
every
Yeah.
couple to just
Yeah.
do it the way that it's so personalized now that nobody I can't even remember the last time we did a money dance. I can't remember money dances were like so popular in the very beginning.
Oh,
That was like there is
Oh,
four or
back in the
five things that
80s.
you did
I did a
instantly,
I
right?
did a money dance like 6 weeks ago, and
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
know, but I hadn't done one in so long. I forgot what they were, and we actually ended up bringing. I had to go get bunches of ones and have them available because people only had 20s and hundreds or didn't have their bank card with them. And they're like, "Oh my God, we're supposed
Oh
to
my
throw money." Yeah, so I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, because then you're caught off guard. You're like, "What? Wait, I'm supposed to have dollar bills? Am I in a strip club? What's happening here?"
Even when it comes to like
see it's
monograms, even a monogram, like a two letter monogram as opposed to a 3-letter monogram.
Yeah.
Some people will want one person before another person, and the reason they want it that way may be nothing more than the fact that they just like the way that it looks.
yes.
See,
Or the
there you
way
go.
it sounds sometimes.
Yes.
It's just simply that. But I feel
Well,
like
I'm working
I
with one right now, and the I will say the initials are S and B, and the other way they didn't want to
oh,
do for obvious reasons.
You didn't want it to be
so
BS. You didn't
so
want it
No, they didn't want it to have a BS.
do you stand in and say like, okay, this is how we are doing this right here?
I mean, you don't want no BS up on the wall. I think that's funny. Oh my God, that's really funny. Oh God. Or people with
Yes,
unfortunate last names, like,
right.
maybe they're marrying somebody that's the last name is Large, but their name is Richard. It's like, we don't want to call you Dick Large. I mean, it's just, that happens. That definitely happens.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but for like takeaways for people that are listening or are watching us, if they want to be more inclusive about how they're presenting themselves to the community at large, I think my first piece of advice would be take a look at your marketing materials, right? Change those words of him and her, change those, and take out the bridal
Contracts.
party. You're absolutely correct, Shonda. It's like the wedding party. And stop making assumptions about what people want. You need to ask them.
Yes,
Right.
ask them. And then the biggest thing too is in addition to looking at your collateral, looking at your words and things like that, if the community if the LGBTQ plus community is exactly something that you want to get into, and you've never done it before and you've never done a wedding before, reach out to Richard, reach out to Marcy,
Yep.
do a photo shoot, do a legitimate shoot
Yeah.
with a legitimate couple and use that for your marketing. Because
Oh,
one of the biggest things for me is that because this is what I started in, I have so many couples to truly have on my website because I believe 100% that when a couple goes to your values and your missions and core, all of those things, they should be everywhere. So if someone goes to my
yep.
website or to A Monique Affair's website, they will see here is who we value, here is who we work with. They will see themselves instantly. A Monique
Nice.
Affair is my first company. That's the first company I have. But if you go there, you'll see everything there. If you go to A Monique Affair's Instagram page, you will see all the couples there. So
Right.
instantly, that is the one thing that couples say that when they go to those pages, there's no question. They
Yeah.
see themselves. And that is the biggest thing. I had my wife tell me, why do you on A Monique Affair's website, why is it all people? Where's your design? Where's this? And I tell her, like, the thing that connects people is seeing themselves.
Yep.
When you see
100%.
yourselves, then you start going and looking in the gallery and looking here and looking there. But the key thing is making sure that your social media, that your message is clear and cohesive
Yep.
and it's out there. And the same with Chanda Daniels too, shondadaniels.com. When you go there, you will see the couples and the style and everything on that website as well.
Well, and then even your contracts, like I told Marcy this
Mhm.
ages ago. I mean, I had to change my own contracts. I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
oh my God, my own contract. Me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yes.
as somebody that I would think is overly like sensitive. And I went and looked at my contract and I went, holy crap, it says bride and groom at the very bottom of it. It's like, what am I thinking? But it's a matter of taking a step back and pausing and going back over your material with a fine eye, focused on,
Yes.
does this say male or female?
Yes. And
And
I'm
if
going
it
to go
does,
even I'm going to
change
go
it.
even further. I'm going to go even further and say this part too. This just recently happened to me. I'm not ashamed to say it. Go through your creative partners list
Yeah,
and make sure, because there are some times when you work with people, you may like them, you bring them on.
right.
Go through and make sure every single one of your creative partners are inclusive as well. I learned the hard way.
I didn't even think about that.
Go
Good
through
point.
and double check, especially those, you know how it is, Richard or
Yeah,
Keith. I'm sorry. You start working with someone and then
yeah.
you're like, this person is cool. I'm just going to add them in and refer them to other people. And
Right,
then
because they
all of
did a
a
great
sudden,
job. Everybody loved them. It's like, and then you don't really pay attention because, well, you worked with them, so everybody went
it,
great. The couple loved them, so you just assume,
I
okay,
learned the hard way.
oi, I
I
hate
did.
that.
I learned the hard way and but I feel like I recovered good. The
Yeah,
couple, they understood, and I handle it with grace, but it's still like go through and make sure those new folks you bring in that
yeah,
they are indeed inclusive. And every single at the top of the year, I make sure that all of our creative partners that their contracts and remind them about their collateral, tell
yeah.
them to double
Mhm.
check if they've made any edits to make sure that we're on point.
That's so. You know what? I luckily because of where we are in South Florida, that everybody seemed to be on the same train at the same time to make sure that they did that right. Everybody kind of
Right.
went through this whole reorganization and rewrite of all their contracts and their collaterals because it is a big market down here. The LGBTQ plus
Yes.
is a big market, but even now I still find bride and groom. I mean, it's amazing how many salespeople at hotels will
Oh,
say,
yes.
That is
bridal
the
suite. Yeah,
biggest.
so hotels are the worst about it and
Mhm.
especially when you're checking in, there is nothing worse than a couple checking in, a same-sex couple, and they're like, do you want two beds or one? And it's like, there's that moment. It's like, if I say one, is he going to give me a look? Is it,
Are they
Or
going
the
to treat me
bridal suite.
different?
yeah, the bridal suite. So I also find that as a planner, I run interference in many situations so that the couple doesn't have to feel that because I'm not emotionally attached to it on that side. I'm not, I'm the pro, so I can tell the front desk agent to suck it up and give me a king bed for my two grooms, and I don't want your prejudice walking in here. If not, we're going to a different hotel. You know, so I try to provide that kind of barrier and protection, and I think that we all do
Yes.
that are in this
Yes.
Try. We
world.
do our best. Yes.
You know,
It,
I mean, yeah.
it's still sad that we have to. I don't know how we can change that at the hotel level because I feel like I come across that too, and just as a human checking into a hotel, the same question, and it's like, did
yeah,
I mark that on the
right.
reservation? What did I mark on the reservation? Let's go with that. That's a safe bet. You know what I
And
mean? Like,
Mhm.
and that's the hard part is that it's not just one area. We're not just talking to planners. We're not just talking about invitation people or bands or musicians or any. We're talking about a whole like huge $1 trillion industry that has to stop and pay attention. I mean, that's a big machine to change and to make sure that they're being inclusive in everything that they do.
Mhm.
yes,
And I mean, all the
yes,
way down to the worker bees. I mean, because you can't just do it on the top level. You can't just, God bless Hilton for having the same sex ads that they've been playing on TV. But if you don't do the training all the way down to your front desk agents and to, the housekeepers who
Yes.
raise an eyebrow when they walk in and they're like, well, two guys. Okay. And then the eyebrow goes, you got to talk to them. You got to tell them, you got to train them.
That's a good point. I never thought about that, like the housekeeping team and things like that. I know that I always check in with the person, the catering salesperson to say, like, remind your team, this
Yeah.
is a LGBTQ plus couple. And then on the day of, I have my event director remind everyone that it's LGBTQ plus couple. So it's not any uncomfortable. And because as you know, Keith, we can't rely on other people
Mm-mm.
to make sure that they've conveyed that message. So it's always, like you said, we're always managing those relationships and those expectations so nobody feels uncomfortable. But
I'm
it,
going to,
it is, I feel like we're all so busy.
oh God, I'm going to turn the tables on you here for this next thing. I also find the
Uh-oh.
opposite happens, that when I tell, like, when we go in and we tell everybody, it's like, okay, guys, this is a gay couple, right? So be respectful. I find that the LGBTQ staff members sometimes get too comfortable because they're like, oh, we get them. Hey, girl, and it's like, no, you still have to have that professional.
Yes.
I mean, have you seen? I mean, that's happened several times where because the other person was also gay, that they just assumed that they knew them and that they could just be a little bit more comfortable in how they were speaking. And it's like, no, still a couple that are paying you.
I haven't experienced that, but thank you, Keith. I will keep my eye open for those kind of
You
situations.
haven't had that. You haven't had
Knock
where
on I can't
gay
knock on
couple.
anything close right now, but knock on wood, no, I
Oh
have
my god.
not had. Have you had that happen?
Oh God, constantly. The thing is that especially like wait staff. If I have a gay couple and they happen to have a gay waiter, the gay waiter's a little too sometimes too friendly and a little too comfortable and a little too. I mean it, and I have
They
to
don't know how
say
to read the couple.
they don't know how to read the couple and they don't know how to react. I'm like, well, react to them just like you would any other couple. You know,
Right.
you don't know them. You don't know them. And just because you two happen to be both gay doesn't mean that you now know each other.
Yes. And this is still your job. This
And
is
it's
still like
professional.
So,
a wedding. It's still, you still have to be professional. Just don't call them bride and groom. That is the
right.
only reason why you're saying what the
But the opposite can be true, that they're a little too comfortable, they're a little too accepting. It's like, well, yeah, no,
wow.
back up a little bit. We have that professional standard. I mean, it unfortunately goes both ways. It does go both ways when it comes to that.
Well,
you know
thank you. I will keep my eye open for that
it's
situation.
surprising you've never had somebody become, I mean, maybe because of where you're located, because you're in San Francisco and it is part of, I mean, it just is. I mean, gays and lesbians have been a part of the society and an outwardly spoken part of the society that,
Mhm.
here, like I'm from Texas. If I had a gay, if I was 18, let me say, if I was 18 or 20 and I had a gay couple getting married, I would feel relief and I would feel a connection, even though
Yes, I see.
that's not true.
I actually have a question for the both of you.
Yes.
So
Mm.
when somebody comes to you and they're of LGBTQ plus community
Mhm.
and they know that you are in the same community,
Yeah.
do they then take any liberties or expect certain responses differently than the other?
I'm gonna say yes. I'm
Mhm.
gonna say yes because there's that instant connection, and they're like, you know what we're talking about,
Mhm.
you understand, and
I
it's
do
like,
understand.
and and I can say, yeah, but they don't know that, they don't know what
Right.
my background is, they don't know, and same vice versa. I can't ever say, well, you get it. It's like, no, 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 no,
Right.
no. I have to take that time and that extra step to ask those questions, just like I would any other couple.
Yes, I feel for me the same as what Keith said, but then also I feel like it's just a sense of knowing that I'm going to take care of them,
Yeah.
right? I feel like that's
Yes.
more the connection. And it's not I'm not going to force them to do things that aren't something that they're not going to connect to. Like I'm not going to force
Right.
them to do those traditional things.
Right.
So I feel like that's more of the comfort level.
Mhm.
And I feel the other thing too is that they love, and this transfers to all couples. Like they love that I value diversity and inclusion. They
Well, yeah,
love like every single couple that connects to us loves that fact. And so
100%.
that is one thing that we all have in common is the value of diversity and inclusion.
Do you find that there's new traditions coming about because of the inclusivity, because gays and lesbians and the LGBTQ plus community is now becoming a much more visible part of the wedding industry? Are you finding that there are new traditions that are coming out? Like
That's a good question.
more and more of my couples are asking not to, that they want to meet at the middle, both men and women. Like if they're a traditional straight couple or heterosexual couple, the bride doesn't want to be the last person. She's like, no, he's my equal. I want to come in at the same time. And that's because they saw it with one of their friends at an LGBTQ plus. And the same thing for garter tosses. That garter thing is going away. Thank God. Hello. Why are you putting something up somebody else's leg? I don't understand this. And I even had a bride that wanted to toss a football versus a bridal bouquet. She's like, why do I have to throw flowers? I don't want to throw flowers. I play ball.
Yes, I can see that. I feel like for me, the biggest thing with both couples is that people aren't doing, like you said, the garter toss. They're not doing the bouquet toss. They're not. The biggest thing now is after parties
Yeah.
and just having like a
Fun.
fun dance party. That is, and late night snacks.
Late night
Those
snack.
are those are the biggest things right now that
And
are
cigars. Cigars are making a big comeback.
cigars.
Like, who
Mm,
knew? I mean, you would
Yes.
think with all the cancer and the cigarettes and et cetera that cigars would,
yeah.
but cigars are making a comeback. It's crazy. I've had more and more people ask for a cigar roller
Yeah.
lately, and I'm like, really? Okay, I'll
Yeah.
get you a
I
cigar roller.
know a
So-
lot of people are doing them, and yeah, because I'm doing a lot of matches.
But you know what I love though? I really love how just the individuality of all the couples are coming through.
Yeah.
I'm happy that,
Yes.
and a lot of color. A lot
Mhm.
of like the color stories are so beautiful. What I
Yeah.
have seen, I don't know about you, Keith, but what I've seen a lot of with LGBTQ plus weddings is, remember there was this one, the first time I saw this amazing picture that had the rainbow color smoke bombs that went off and
Oh, I
had the
have that.
iconic picture.
I have that.
I feel like people want to do that more. I feel like that has now become like a signature
Yes.
want to do thing.
I love it. I mean, I had a lesbian couple, and then we did that classic shot, and they were walking down this, and those smoke bombs, which are not easy, by the way. So,
I know. I did one. I was like, oh my God, my eyes are burning first.
oh God,
And
yeah. And they have little pins that you have to pull, and they don't always go off. So then you have to like run and pull them for them. Oh yeah,
yes.
that
So
iconic pictures. Yeah, not so iconic doing it.
I feel like that has become like a must do thing.
Yeah. And then what about I'm seeing more and more men as on the bridal party, quote unquote. A lot more men are best men, on the
Mhm.
bride side versus
Yes.
maid of honor. And so I don't even know what, and me personally, and this is why I want to ask you this question. What do you say for that maid of honor, best man, like position? Because if you have a best man, two best
Like an
men,
attendant? You mean just an attendant?
yeah. So but you want it. Somebody has to be first on either side. So then, what do you call them? Do you call them best men? Do you call them maid of honor? I mean, what's the proper terminology now?
I just say best person. And that is something else too. Like you said, we've had a lot of mixed wedding parties for
Yeah.
all of our couples. We've had a lot. A majority, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, a majority of our wedding parties now are mixed. And
Right.
so it's just the best person, best people, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
It's essentially the same task, and then whatever task you want to assign that person, that's what we're doing. And it's getting so creative in terms of the attire, what
Yeah.
people are wearing, the colorfulness, letting people be great and feel amazing in what they're wearing. So it's I absolutely love that. I mean, I love the classic everyone wear the same dress too. If
Yeah.
that's if that's who you
No.
are, or if that's what speaks to you, that's
Yeah.
perfect. But the colorfulness, everybody feels, I feel they feel so much better. They're able to dance, they're looking good, they feel good in what they have on,
Yep.
and they really have a good time.
I had a couple that they referred to their best man, best woman as primary. They're my primary, and I was like, oh, okay, I can use that. I can use primary because then I can say that it's like, okay, I need the bride's primary or the groom's ceremony or either groom. But again, if we're still searching for words and we're having to ask our clients, I can't even imagine somebody else that's not been part of the LGBTQ plus community trying to do this. And I think what we've really discussed here is be open, be sensitive, ask questions.
Ask questions. For
Open,
sure.
sensitive, yes. And I truly like, for those pronouns and everything, I have a list that I've learned, even just the basics, and then adding on other names that people have called each other. And I just add them on. The list is ever growing. So to me, it's just about learning, like we said, being open, listening, and just doing what makes people feel good.
Oh my God. I can't believe, Shonda, I mean, I can't believe we've actually already gone this long. I mean,
Great topic.
I know we're fast approaching an hour, and my goodness, I feel like we could just continue this conversation, and we will actually. We'd love to have you back on because I would love to
Definitely.
continue this conversation
Yes.
because I just think we're
just touched
scratching
on
the
it.
surface.
Yeah.
You know what
Yes,
I
I
mean?
feel you have it has to be a continuous conversation, because just like with all kind of diversity and inclusion in the industry in general,
Yeah.
it's not just one conversation we have and then we keep it moving. It's a constant reminder, constant conversation, a part A, B, C, and D, and whatever till we get to Z.
Right.
But it's still like we're always learning new things.
And so if somebody wants to reach out to you or find you on social media, how do they go about that? I mean,
The
if you're
best
watching the video, the ticker tape's been going on below us on and off throughout the program, so you can find it there. But, if you're listening to us on the podcast, how can they find you?
I like that. It's on Instagram. I am located at CD, that means Shonda Daniels _, Shonda Daniels. Somebody else named Shonda Daniels too. And
I
I'm
was
like, oh
about
my
to say
gosh.
it's so good
What
that
the
you had to
heck?
say it twice. Okay.
Yes. So it's at CD _ Shonda Daniels.
And your website's www.shandadaniels.com, correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Perfect. You've been a joy. I'm so glad that we finally made this happen.
Me too. Me too.
Yes.
Me too.
Yes. Definitely have
Yes.
to do it again.
Oh my goodness. All right. So thank you everybody that's been listening to us or watching us. We will be back next Tuesday at 2:00. But for now, we're all going to say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank
Bye.
you.